Hey, all right. Welcome, everybody. We are just getting ready to go for our slideshow for this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to talk briefly about our National Geographic student travel programs that are available for summer 2024. I am going to start, and I'm going to share a little bit about the types of programs we have and the different on assignments that students can choose to focus on. But then we're going to do an especially deep dive into our programs in Iceland. And I am thrilled to welcome National Geographic Explorer M. Jackson to share a bit more about her experience as an explorer and as an expert on these student programs. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Hannah Gilkinson. I am one of the directors here at National Geographic Student Travel. I have been designing and leading programs for the past 15 years. My background is in wildlife biology, and I've helped to develop many of our programs that have a focus on wildlife conservation and science. So in a little bit, I'm going to welcome my colleague John Lindsley to join us, and he's going to share a little bit more about the Iceland itinerary and what students can expect on the Exploration Iceland program this year. We're going to be happy to answer any questions you have, so do feel free to put those in the Q&A box down below, and either we'll answer them in the chat or I'll answer them live at the end of the webinar. And you can always call us if you want to ask specific questions unique to your circumstances or learn about any of our other programs. But please also know that we will record this and send it out to everybody who's registered for the webinar today. So if you'd like to share it with anyone else, you can do so at that time. So the National Geographic student travel programs are unique educational opportunities that allow students to explore and learn while connecting to the missions of the National Geographic Society. The Society, of course, is a nonprofit organization that is committed to using the power of science, exploration, education, and storytelling to illuminate and protect the wonder of our world. These programs provide an opportunity for students to get out into the field with National Geographic explorers and to engage with their surroundings as they learn the skills and explore the fields such as photography, conservation science, geology, engineering and technology, and storytelling. And our hope is that students return home from these programs with an explorer mindset, curious and inspired and ready to observe and engage with the world around them, and also with a real sense of responsibility and respect for other people, cultures, and the natural world. This summer, we are offering a couple of different program types for high school students in 2024. That would be the exploration programs, university workshops, and our photo workshops. And for summer 2024, we're also offering exploration programs for middle school students as well. So I'm just going to briefly run through these different program types so you have a sense for what to expect. The high school programs are designed for students who are completing 9th through 12th grade or the equivalent. The exploration category is our largest category. It has 8 programs in it and 8 destinations, and they're traveling programs. These are smaller programs, generally with 16 to sometimes 24 students and 2 to 3 leaders, plus the National Geographic Explorer. When students apply for an exploration program, they're asked to pick a specific on-assignment focus, and each exploration program offers 2 different on-assignments to choose from. Photography, climate science, wildlife conservation, and anthropology, culture, and tradition are the 4 on-assignment projects that exploration programs have. So students can expect to spend part of their day with their on-assignment group and part of the day participating in whole group activities. The university workshop is based in Cambridge on the campus of MIT, and it focuses on technology, engineering, and robotics. Now, this is a larger program of around 50 students and 6 to 8 leaders plus an explorer. And throughout the program, we visit labs, participate in workshops, and look at how explorers and researchers at MIT and across Cambridge are using cutting-edge technology to address issues impacting the world. Students are then challenged to consider issues in their own communities and, taking what they've learned and discussed during the program, develop a final project that could address the problem. The photography workshops are offered in Yellowstone, and these are intensive photo workshops where students get into the field daily with their trip leaders and the National Geographic photography expert, learning everything from composition and technique and storytelling with an emphasis on editing as well. And there'll be a final gallery opening with images, which is open to friends and family who are able to come as well as the public. Our middle school programs, we have them in Iceland and Italy and Greece this year. And on those programs, students don't choose a single on-assignment focus, but they rotate through learning about the different themes. And these are highly structured programs open to 7th and 8th grade students or the equivalent. So if we could just pause on this slide, I could talk a little bit quickly about the themes that I just briefly discussed. So The themes is really the lens through which students explore the destination that they're in. And all students are working towards final projects, but I want to emphasize that this is really a journey of exploration and learning. And the projects can take many different forms. It could be a photo gallery or presentation of best images if you're a photography student, or a short written piece or a field journal presentation by the wildlife conservation students. And it's really a chance to get creative. It's not meant to be a high pressure event, but really a chance to dive into a question that you're curious about, that you want to know the answer to, and then learn and share back with the rest of the group and with your friends and family back home what you've taken away from that. Each on assignment will have its own trip leader that's dedicated to teaching students in that on assignment and working with students on those projects. And the explorers, the National Geographic explorers, they work with all of the students regardless of the on assignment focus. So I do want to say that we often have students that can't decide between an on assignment focus, don't know what they want to do. So give us a call and we're happy to help you with that. The anthropology, culture, and tradition is offered in Norway, Japan, Costa Rica, and Thailand, as well as our middle school, Italy, Greece. And then the climate and geology is on our Iceland programs exclusively. Innovation, technology, and robotics is unique to MIT, and photography is offered on all of our different programs, and it's the sole focus of the photography workshop. The wildlife conservation is offered in Ecuador, Namibia, and the Canadian Arctic program. So that is just a brief overview of all of our different programs and types of programs and what to expect. So now I want to pass it over to my colleague, John, who's going to talk a little bit more in depth about our program in Iceland, and I'll let John take it away from here.
Great. Thanks so much, Hannah. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning in today to learn more about our National Geographic student travel program in Iceland, and also to meet our Iceland program expert, Dr. M. Jackson. My name is John Lindsley. I am a program director with Nat Geo Student Travel. I organize our programs in Iceland, both our high school exploration program and also our middle school program, which Hannah mentioned. I also direct our high school program in Namibia. So Iceland's one of my favorite destinations to travel and explore, and I'm excited to share more about it with you today. We have two departures of Iceland this summer. It's a 14-day program. We travel counterclockwise around the country's ring road, beginning and ending in Reykjavik. Travel by private shuttle bus, and we use 4x4 vehicles for accessing some hikes and other activities along the way. We typically spend a couple of days in each stop we make as we go around the country. As far as accommodations are concerned, small family guest houses, inns, and hostels. And while we're outside for most of each day, we do not camp on this program. It's a question that parents and students often ask. The program explores Iceland's just incredible landscapes. So from waterfalls, geothermal pools, to glaciers, lava tunnels, bubbling mud pots, you name it, the seacoast, all while learning about your chosen on assignment, whether that be photography or climate and geology. And something that I just think is really special is that in addition to the program leaders for this trip, who themselves are experts and professionals in their own right, we're joined in the field by our National Geographic expert as well, alongside Icelandic glaciologists, ecologists, naturalists, and adventure guides, and other local experts along the way. And this really just enriches the program experience for students, especially as they dive into their on assignment focus. So getting into some photos now, I mentioned we begin and end in Reykjavik, and that bottom left-hand shot there, is a photo of Hallgrímskirkja. So this is a church in central Reykjavik. It's one of the tallest structures in all of Iceland, and it's inspired by the country's landscapes, especially the image of cooling lava and some of the impressive basalt columns, which we'll see on the island's south coast. And while we're in Reykjavik as well, we really get to set out on foot and explore the capital city where most Icelanders live. It's a cultural hub. It's full of incredible museums and historical sites, a great harbor front for walking, cafes, other eateries, and things like that. So it's a really good sort of hub for us to begin and end the program. In the bottom right-hand corner there, is a picture of the Blue Lagoon. So we have a chance to soak in a number of thermal baths on this program, and it's always a highlight for students. It's also a common practice amongst Icelanders. And we do head there first. So right after landing in Reykjavik, we head to the Blue Lagoon for a dip to relax, get to know each other. That's one of the country's bigger pools, quite famous. But when we're in towns, as we make our way around the country in smaller communities, we'll get a chance to go to some of the smaller community swimming spots. Outside of Reykjavik too, I should mention, we also get to visit one of the geothermal power stations that supplies much of the city's energy. Top left photo there is a group out on horseback in Iceland's north. So here we get to explore the rolling hills and sheep pastures along a fjord outside of Akureyri. And our guides there will share their family's history in the area and their work with horses and other livestock. We'll also go on a whale watching trip there in a traditional Icelandic oak boat. In the top right hand of the screen here is a photo of a village of turf farmhouses. And this is in that same area in the north, a settlement here which dates back to Iceland's earliest days, now open to the public as a museum. And in the middle pic there, of course, is a waterfall, and waterfalls are abundant in Iceland, and our itinerary takes us to many of them, often on foot, hiking. Each has its own characteristics. As I've traveled there, and myself, I'm always amazed. Each one's unique, not to mention that they look different depending on the time of day and the water levels and everything when you're visiting. On to the next slide. We've got some more images here. In the top right is a photo actually of our expert M. Jackson, who will be speaking in a few minutes with students on the shores of Jökulsárlón in Iceland's southeast. This is a glacier lagoon, a lake in fact, that's filled with meltwater from an outlet glacier that we also trek on that extends off of Europe's largest ice cap. Down in the bottom right, so in addition to trekking on the glacier, we also get to try a bit of ice climbing with our professional Icelandic glacier guides. And our glacier day is always a highlight for students. At the end of the summer, we hear from students just how meaningful and impactful that experience was for them. And just as an example of how we engage with our OA themes, while out on the glacier, our photo students might focus on an aspect of photography, given the unique surface and lighting conditions up on the ice, while our climate and geology students might be with a local glaciologist examining recent signs or evidence of glacial recession. Bottom left, bottom center, and top right here, Iceland's famous for its geologic and geothermal features. So whether it's exploring a canyon on a hike to a waterfall or walking past geysers, steam vents, mud pots, or photographing seaside cliffs and rock formations near Vik on the island's south coast. That's that top right photo there with the church. Or in Iceland's north, we have the opportunity to go into an ice cave in the permafrost to view ice formations formed over many years. So whatever it may be, we get to experience these sites, those very sites that just make Iceland such an iconic destination up close. And I just wanted to put in here too a quick plug for our middle school Iceland program. That's a program specifically designed for students completing 7th and 8th grades. It's a day or two shorter than the high school program that I just spoke about, and follows a different itinerary focusing on Reykjavik, a peninsula just to the north and west of Reykjavik called Snæfellsnes, as well as visiting the Golden Circle on the south coast. Offers middle schoolers a great introduction to photography and geology and climate science, along with plenty of adventure. And so if that program is of interest to any attendees here today, I'm happy to speak more about that. And overall, I hope that was a helpful summary of this really incredible program. Reach out to us anytime to ask questions about Iceland or any of our other programs for summer 2024. I'm always happy to have individual conversations with students and parents about their interests. And with that said, it's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. M. Jackson. Em is a geographer, glaciologist, National Geographic Explorer, and TED Fellow, and will be the expert on the first departure of this summer's National Geographic Student Travel Exploration Program in Iceland. I'll let Em tell you more about her many accomplishments. We're thrilled to have her with us today. Welcome, Em. Thank you.
Thanks so much. John, that was just a really nice introduction. I really appreciate that. When the Geographic reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to talk for this webinar, I was like, absolutely, it doesn't matter the time or the place. I believe wholeheartedly in this program. I feel like I'm constantly talking about National Geographic student travel. I'm constantly talking to parents, teenagers, communities about the opportunities that can be presented with a program like this. I think I've been with the Geographic since about 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. Let's just discount how many decades that might have been so long ago. But I've really stayed with it each year because I feel like I've had a front seat watching this program change students' lives. I've gotten to see students come in who are curious about a place or about learning a new skill in photography or a new skill in science, and they come out with this strong connectivity to colleagues and networks and friends that grows with them for the months and the years after a program like this. I see students come out with new questions and new complexities, new senses of who they are and where they're going. And for me, this is one of the strong aspects of this program. And I'm really proud of being a part of it and my role in it. So what I do for a program like this is I get to be the expert. I get to step in for a small part of the trip like this, maybe just a couple of days. I get to interact with students. I get to teach them everything I know and then step out. And that means in just a couple of days, I've got to teach them everything about Iceland, everything about glaciers, because broadly, I'm a geographer and a glaciologist. And my work that I've been doing for decades centers on trying to understand glaciers and protect them worldwide. I get to really, within that larger scope, teach students about all the different work that intersects with this career as a glaciologist. So as the images on the screen show, I'm also a TED Fellow and a public speaker. So I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to communicate science effectively. And I get to help students on these programs do that. And then for the other picture, I love this because I get to spend a lot of time working in film and television. I do a lot of science consulting, science hosting. And so I work with students on not only what stories they're going to tell, but what stories they're receiving. So what they see in television series or on the internet or social media, how they can unpack that. And this image is great because right now on your screen, I'm in a purple jacket on the image on the right, and I'm doing some show talking about something cold in the Arctic, but I happen to be filming in LA. And there's a heat dome in LA when I was filming. So my feet are actually in a bucket of ice water as I'm trying to pretend I'm somewhere cold while I'm somewhere hot. So how we unpack these realities. I'm also a climate and energy host for Crash Course. So I get to make science accessible and then focus on how to make science transferable. And this is the skill I get to teach students who come out on programs, right? The metrics we use is, can I teach a student something about science? And then can they take what they're learning, what I'm teaching, and teach it themselves? That's a huge part of what I get to do. So I'm also an explorer for the National Geographic, which means I had the privilege of working from all 7 continents over the last, probably 2 decades. And if you look on the image on the left, I guarantee you glacier work always looks exactly like it does right now. So it's always that sunny, that green. None of that is true. But what is true is that I get to spend a lot of time in a tent. And that means I've had to figure out how to deal with a lot of my downtime. And so part of that involves, for the last couple of years, I've gotten to do my own on-assignment projects. I've gotten the opportunity to write books. And just like we teach the students, I've gotten a chance to try different things, different ways of telling stories. One of those includes different genres. I've had the opportunity to write a memoir or do nonfiction. I just recently wrote a novel. And for all of the parents out there that are constantly telling their kids to get off their phones, I will out myself right now. I always look like I'm on my phone. And that's because I've written most of my books out in the field on my phone. One of the things I really work with students to think about is not how to use this just to kind of fill your time, but rather how do you use your tools to tell stories and to connect?
It shows that technological issues don't happen only when you're in the field.
That is one of the lovely things, Hannah, that I've always enjoyed. And also one of the things I get to teach students is that everywhere I go in the field, I try to bring extra pieces of technology because inevitably something is going to fail. But also one of the things I love is that we all know that. And so it's not a point of anxiety and it's not a point of panic. We just have to own, hold on a minute, my technology isn't working, and we'll move on from there.
Yeah, some of the best moments I've had in the field have been in completely unscripted and unanticipated situations where, you're forced to be in the moment and either problem solve or be observant or, just enjoy what you can about that actual moment. I remember being trapped in a rainstorm with a bunch of students, and we were on our way to a swimming hole, but instead we just hunkered underneath an awning of a small, place where we were, and gave our appreciations for how unique an opportunity it was for us to be in a rainstorm in Ecuador. So it is true. You need to take advantage of these. And I appreciate the chance to just touch base with you. So
Absolutely. I think the one that I'm famous for at the Geographic that still makes me cringe is I was in Antarctica and had my iPad and my my iPhone, and I got really excited right at the beginning of a trip. And so we were leaning over the edge of the ship to look at these icebergs, and you can hear the crackle. So icebergs, as they start to melt, they release the air that they've had trapped for hundreds and thousands of years. And you could hear it, you could smell it. It's this incredible thing. But I got so excited, there went all my technology over the board into the water. And there was a moment, I'll own it, when I was like, oh, I'll jump into the South Atlantic and get my gear. I did not do that. So I lived, but none of my technology did. And it was an incredible trip because I had to pivot and then spend the next couple of weeks with no technology because I'd lost it all in that moment. It was awful.
Well, nice forced tech fast, I suppose.
So one of the things that I reflect on as being an explorer for the National Geographic Society is that when I was the teenage age of many of the students who come through this program, I had spent a lot of my childhood reading National Geographic magazines, but it was never something that I thought I would be a part of. I grew up really remote, pretty disadvantaged, and I just kind of self-selected myself out of all of these different options. And on my desk here, I keep this old picture that's about over 100 years old of the founding members of the National Geographic Society. And it's an old picture of all the members, and they were standing on the stoop of what is still today the National Geographic headquarters. And all these people wanted to do at that time, over 100 years ago, was build a club that diffused geographic knowledge. They thought that geographic literacy was incredibly important. And they went on to build the National Geographic Society as we know it today, which is, for me, always been this place that was almost elite, somewhere that I didn't even think that I would belong. And yet, if we can skip forward in a slide, the National Geographic has changed so much today. First off, there's now women in the club, which I'm completely for. But today, while the National Geographic is still trying to diffuse geographic knowledge and still trying to increase the geographic literacy of people worldwide, my fellow explorers and I, the people you see on the screen right now, what brings us all together is that we're guided by this belief that with knowing comes caring, and with caring comes hope. Today, everyone on the screen right now believes that if we want the world to be a better place, we have to start teaching about it. We have to start helping one another find a meaningful connection to every place on this planet and everyone who also lives here. And for me, a great step in that direction, especially for young people, is National Geographic student travel. If we can skip forward, skip forward one more. I've had the opportunity to work with students and adults on many of the Geographics programs. I've gone all over the Arctic, Antarctica, Africa, Asia, North America. And I get to be with people who want to have a better connection with our planet, who want to do boots on the ground, learn about places, learn about stories. But I'll out myself right now. My favorite place, my favorite program, if we can skip one slide, is Iceland. And this is my favorite place, my favorite program in all of the National Geographic student travel. For years, I've been working across to Iceland, but mainly down on the south coast. So Iceland's this interesting place. If you're a glaciologist, it has over 400 glaciers total. 269 of them are named for over the last 1,000 years, names that go all the way back to settlement. But glaciers here, like glaciers worldwide, are melting at rates we have never before experienced in human history. And so local glaciology models are predicting that most glaciers here are going to lose present volume, probably 25 to 35% over the next 50 years. Slide, please. But I can rattle off numbers like that to you, but what do you do with them? And how do you make a story about them? How does glacier melt, glacier loss, glacier change impact people, communities, people living in North America, people living in Asia? How does what is happening in Iceland connect worldwide? For students who come out on this program with me in Iceland, these are the things they have to start thinking about. These are the things we've got to unpack. And critically, once we've unpacked them and connected them, we have to think about how we're going to tell the story. Next slide, please. On the screen right now is one example of how that story can be told. So you're looking at a place in Iceland called Jökulsárlón, and this is one student's work through photography, trying to explain a UNESCO World Heritage Site where people from all over the world converge in this one rare spot to watch Iceland's third largest glacier dissolve away in front of us. You can literally watch bits of this glacier break off, travel through, and dissolve away. How do you tell that story? How do you share the emotion and an experience? And for one student, the images you see on the screen right now, that's how they told this story. Next slide, please. What I try to get students to think about is that, to me, glaciers make visible things that can appear abstract, like senses of identity, things like spiritual cultural values and economies and safety and senses of the future. Glaciers make visible stories, climate change, human history, all of these complex things. Next slide, please. But I can take the word glacier out of the sentence I just said, and I can put in different things. I can replace it with oceans, volcanoes, parks, trees, anything that a student is interested in. I am fascinated by ice, but that doesn't mean students have to be. But what I do want them to be is fascinated by something, learn about something, and advocate for it. I want them to think about how they can find themselves in these larger stories that we tell, and then share them with one another. Next slide, please. For years, I have been watching students come into this program, and often they come in already certain of the photography they're going to do, the science skill they're going to learn. They have that beautiful certainty of being a student, of being a young person. But then I watch them interact with some of these incredible leaders who teach them science telling skills, storytelling skills, different ways to basically approach everything and think critically. I watch these students learn from local Icelanders, learn from the landscape, the volcanoes, the glaciers. I watch them learn from one another and collaborate and build. And they come out telling entirely new stories. Next slide, please. This is another story that a student told on one of my trips that I think is incredibly impressive. One of the students, they did a project focused on how we tell the story of glaciers and glacier visualization. And one of the things the student had noted is that often we have pictures of ice, and then that connects to pictures of oceans and seas rising. And so we have that connection and that really dominant story. The glaciers are melting and the seas are rising. But this student wanted to trouble that narrative a little bit. And they did that with this image on the screen right now, right? So they talked about how in Iceland, because the glaciers are melting, it's actually making the land, the physical landmass of the island, rise up, and it's rising faster than the seas. So in the image on the screen right now, as opposed to a narrative where an ocean comes in and floods a village, you're looking at the village of Höfn, and a lot of that green and sedimenty looking land is brand new land. It's rising out of the ocean. And this student wanted to tell a more complex and more nuanced version of what change can look like. Next slide, please. This is the highlight of my year as a scientist, is going out with all of these students and figuring out different ways to interact with the landscape, different ways to tell a story. I get to hop in and know them for one brief moment, but then I get to follow them in the weeks and the months and the years after as they take these new stories, these new skills, these new senses of self that they get from this program, and they apply it to school projects and college applications and job applications. And they get to apply it to the decisions they have to make for internships and career and travel and life. And for me, I've watched since 2010, 2011, students become really active change makers because of what they've learned on this program. So for me, it's an incredible honor, and it gives me a lot of hope for all of us and for this planet that we're all participating in. So I'll stop there because I have no idea what time it is, and we'll just go for any questions or anything else, Hannah, you want to jump in here with.
Sure. Thank you, Em. I thank you, everybody, Em and everybody, for bearing with us during the technical difficulties. But I just want to say I've had a lot of privilege of traveling to various places, both with students and, you know, in other work that I've done. And every time I hear from John and Em talk about Iceland, it kicks me that I haven't had a chance to go there yet. It does seem like absolutely such an amazing place. And I know every student that goes out into the field with you is just fortunate, and you know, I'm so grateful that you're part of this today, but then also this summer, and as you have been for years. So thank you for that. I am just going to really quickly talk about. I'm glad Em mentioned our leaders. Because our leaders are absolutely incredible and an important part of what we do on these programs as well. They are there throughout the program. I mentioned before, they're helping students with their on-assignment projects. They're overseeing everything from health and safety to group dynamics, helping with travel issues that may come up on the program. So really an incredible core experience of the community and the program that we're creating here. And I just wanted to quickly highlight, I encourage you to go to our website and read the bios of all of our leaders who've traveled with us the past summers. Many come back year after year, but also to read the bios and some more history about our explorers that join us as well. But just really quickly here, we have 4 of our leaders. They've been with us for a number of summers. Alex Silva on the left there, she has been taking students into the field with us since 2009. She's an educator. She's worked with middle schoolers to college students, and she can do everything from work with camera traps to teach about coral reef restoration. So she's absolutely incredible. Grateful to have her with us every summer. Leonardo Carrizo is one of our photography instructors. He's a multimedia journalism professor at the Ohio State University, and he's been with us since 2015. Mariela Vasconcelos is, she's from Brazil. She's a passionate traveler and educator and dive instructor who's traveled with us at a number of our destinations in South and Central America. Her PhD research focuses on some overlooked tropical diseases, as well as cellular and molecular biology. And William Liu on the right there has been with us since 2011, leading programs all throughout Scandinavia, Europe, and Asia primarily, but he's an incredible photographer and filmmaker who you know, leads our students every summer as they learn, you know, their voice and storytelling and learn about the technical skills of photography. So please go to the website and see more bios of all of our trip leaders and our explorers. Really quickly, here are all of our different destinations that we go to. So if you see any on here, I think everybody at this point probably wants to go to Iceland, but if you're also interested in any of these other destinations, please give us a call. John coordinates our Iceland program as well as our Namibia program. We have people here in the office that are happy to answer any questions that you might have about any of these destinations. And really quickly, I'll just mention our application process. So we are accepting applications. It's rolling admissions process. So we try to keep it as quick and simple as we can, but we do want to know that, you know, these programs are the right fit and that you're excited to join us for the right reasons. So we ask for a short online application of basic information. Once we have that, you'll be asked to put down a deposit. There is a deposit, $700, a $500 tuition deposit, and a $200 application fee. And that will hold space in the program that is your first choice if there's space, as well as the on assignment that you've chosen for this program. And once we have that and your space is held, we'll ask you for a short personal statement. And we're not looking at your grammar, or it's not a college essay, but we do want to know why you want to go on this program, what it is you're interested in, what you're curious about, you know, what excites you about this. And that's really helpful for our admissions team here to read, but it's also really helpful for the experts and for the leaders on the program to read and get to know what it is that inspires you, what it is that you're curious about, and so that they're prepared to greet you and your curiosities when you get on the program. We also ask for 2 references. They could be educators, coaches, mentors, people that know you working with peers, working, you know, maybe outside of your comfort zone and can envision you on a program such as this. That's really helpful to get their feedback. We'll ask you for 2 email addresses and we'll send them off a quick form. And then once we have all of those, our admissions team can make a decision pretty quickly. And once you're fully accepted into the program, you get access to what we call the digital locker, which is your one-stop shop online resource for packing list, travel information, the bio for your experts and for your leaders. Everything you need to know about your program is going to be there. I'll end actually with a quote from Dr. M. Jackson about these programs, and just to end to say that these programs, they're fun. They're life-changing opportunities for students to learn from experts and guides who are absolute leaders and innovators in their fields. And one goal of these programs, which, you know, was touched on by Dr. Jackson, is to empower students with the skills and the tool sets to really become leaders in their communities. And that's definitely something we've seen over the years here, you know, with National Geographic student programs. So we strive to bring together students who are really share that curiosity for the world, and then let that curiosity build upon itself during the course of the program. And we really emphasize community throughout the course of the experience as well. We emphasize community, inclusivity, and a positive group dynamic as core pieces of what we're trying to do in the student programs. I also wanted to quickly mention that we do offer scholarships for students who might not otherwise be able to attend. And you can definitely see our website. We are accepting applications. The deadline is the 24th of February. So I would encourage you to take a look. And if you're if this is something that you're qualified for, then I absolutely would encourage you to apply for that as well. But other than that, we are here for any questions that might come up. And John, do you know if there's any questions that are still outstanding that I could answer at this point? Or maybe for M?
Hannah, I think all of the questions at this stage have been answered.
Great.
But I would just add on to that. You know, we take a lot of pride in being available to students and parents and families, and so we're always happy to have conversations as people are exploring different summer plans and options. And when you give us a call, you'll actually be able to speak with the very person who's personally organizing that program for the summer. So reach out with anything, email, phone, we're always here.
Yeah, we love to talk about these programs and find the right fit for you. So as John said, give us a call, and we hope to see some of you out in the field this summer. So thank you.